Okay, that's old school. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
we gotta get going here.
Let's do it.
Redcoats.
Here we go. I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. I created the #1 online body language course, bodylanguagetactics.com, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language, help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
Hey, I'm Chase Hughes. I did 20 years in the U.S. military, wrote the #1 best-selling book on behavior profiling, persuasion, and influence, and teach those things to the general public every day. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior, put together the #1 bodylanguagetactics.com course with Scott, and I spend most of my time on Wall Street or corporate America.
Today is part 2 of the Gabby Petito series we're doing. We're going to talk about the traffic stop and the body language we saw on Gabby as well as Brian Laundrie. Greg?
Yeah, guys, this is a bad time. She's been found dead. The cause of death is homicide, and Brian Laundrie is still nowhere to be found. We're going to tell you what we saw. We're not going to conjecture. We're not going to try to tell you what happened. We don't know. We're going to tell you what we see in the body language on the traffic stop. That's it.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Where'd you hit him? Stopped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you stop?
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November.
And then what? And then his reaction was to do what?
It's going to be out of Florida.
He just grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, but then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth. Did he actually hit you? Because, you know, where did he hit you? Don't worry, just be honest. Did he slap your face or what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, we don't.
Okay. What was up with his driving? This officer said he hit a curb. While you're driving? While he was driving, you were hitting him? Did you already tell him all this?
I didn't get that far into it. She was hyperventilating a
She's
little
saying
bit.
that they don't drink, but at the point when you lit them up.
You don't drink or anything.
She started hitting him.
I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I kind of punched his arm like there's an idiot.
She's saying it was like he hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad. It was Gabby?
Yeah.
Try to meditate stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his name? Is it Brian? Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah. But it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
Way of taking my anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, I'm just sharing it, I know it's a little personal, but to help you understand, we would feed off each other's anxiety and it would spiral, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul, just saying. And I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at the situations you can get in, you know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time and then it usually... We'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from...
Quick question. You said you were hitting him in the arm. Did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch the steering wheel?
I didn't touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like, you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and swerve or anything like that?
No. I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
All right, as we go through this, keep in mind you can just hear the sound go out because there's some things the officers are talking about that they can't make public. So, Greg, you want to go first?
Sure. Guys, nothing is good about watching this because we know the terminal end and what happened to this point. And so none of this is good. We're not trying to beat up this young lady, or we're not conjecturing what actually happened. What I'm going to tell you to pay attention to is language around behaviors. We're looking for body language and behavior as a person goes through it. Yes, she is emotional, and yes, she is guarded. And we've heard from many, many people that that's an indicator that someone is being abused. But I'm going to also tell you that when you pull over someone and they're being questioned by the police, they're going to be guarded as well. It's the nature of human beings. We'll see it in her and we'll see it in him. If she is guarding and that is a symptom, then everybody could be in that same situation. When she talks and she says, he grabbed my face, look at her body languages. She's doing exactly what she says. She's moving her hands, she's illustrating, she's gesturing, she's illustrating exactly what she's saying he did. And he scratched me with his nails. She never mentioned slapping. We know there's 911 calls that talk about slapping. The thing I want you to be cautious of when we're looking at this is we're looking at behavior and body language to see what we believe. Now, we know that people hedge and protect people that are abusing them, but that doesn't make them better liars. And if it does, it takes time. So people will bleed the same body language we're always looking for if they're lying. She doesn't appear to be lying when she says he used his hand and his nails hit her. At about 3:05, we're close to the end, when he's asking her, when the police officer is asking Gabby about whether she hit him or not, and she's saying, or whether she grabbed the wheel or not, and she's saying, no, I hit him. Then you see kind of her open body language. She's illustrating and gesturing. She's carrying out the conversation. You see that throughout here. When she says, no, he didn't slap me, he didn't hit me, she shakes her head no. All of her body language is congruent. Any police officer pulling her over and asking those questions is going to believe that based on the body language we're seeing here. There's also a little bit of emotional eye accessing as she looks down into her right as she's talking about this. I don't see fixation on the vehicle ahead of her, which we did see in the beginning. Now, what that means is tough to say because she's also been on the phone talking to someone and there's a lot of emotion associated with that. She says, I know he gets frustrated. She does some downright eye accessing. And then she says it was the first time, and her body language is open. She looks genuine when she says that. And that officer says there's always a first time. He's trying to tell her, look, you're getting yourself into a bind. I'll leave you with this. She's emotional around non-emotional things, and she's not emotional around emotional goings on in the relationship. I said that in the first one, and I want to point out that that's an indicator that this emotional kind of behavior that we're seeing is probably part of their relationship, which means there's volatility associated. And the last point in this entire thing is words are levers to action. No excusing any person who hits another person, whether it's male or female, in the relationship. And if you're in one of those, you need to get yourself to safety somehow. But words are levers to action. Everything I do as an interrogator is simply a word. People drive each other to places with words. She calls him an idiot. Later, we'll hear him call her crazy. If I call my wife idiot, crazy, those kinds of things, it would not end well. It would not go well. But there is no excuse for violence, for physical violence in this case. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, we see a lot of palm exposure here, this kind of flipping up of the palms. And we're following that. She's pulling her hair to the side away from the officer who's talking to her, which is exposing her neck. And we tend to do that to people that we trust or people that we want to connect with. And the way she's illustrating how he grabbed her face, I think is interesting. It's this guy, Brian, is physically communicative. He demonstrates everything that he's talking about when he's talking about his stories. So he is a pretty physical person. And for her not to be emotional and this not to be that big of a deal, so for her to react more emotionally, I think this physical thing was probably more common than not in this relationship. And this is that while she's demonstrating this movement up to her face, this is the one time her left hand is kind of protecting her midsection, which we're more likely to see women do that than men during times of feeling vulnerable or insecure or maybe even threatened. And I think it's possible that his testimony, Brian's testimony about her grabbing the wheel and her saying that she didn't grab the wheel, but she hit him, I think this kind of reveals a good part of how he sees this relationship. If she caused his arm to move, then she controlled the vehicle in his mind. There's a complete transfer of responsibility. So view this from a behavioral perspective. His view of the world is largely with this external locus of control. So other people can assume full responsibility for my actions, which would also speak to his testimony, being unable to control Gabby's mood, which is also his testimony, which is an external locus. But his own, and he's kind of communicating there's a history of several failed attempts, which kind of speaks to this external locus. And at the end of the video, this lip retraction that we're seeing here with Gabby is an important thing to notice, no matter what profession you're in, sales, parenting, law enforcement. When this is exactly when you're seeing a need for reassurance. If the lip goes back into the mouth or an object goes into the mouth, it suggests that there's a need for reassurance there. And noticing when lip retraction or something goes into the mouth, when that happens is more important than just understanding the body language. When am I seeing these behaviors? And when do they become more open or closed? So if you're ever profiling anyone outside of a law enforcement thing, we're looking for changes in behavior more than we're just looking at behavior. So all four of us, we're looking for changes in behavior. That's what we're really looking about. And I think she's honest about him normally being pretty patient with her. But I think she's honest because they have devolved into a place where some things are normal that probably should not be normal at all. Scott?
All right. I was going to go over the big stuff and the tight stuff. I'm not going to get all the things you guys have already covered. We're seeing a lot of adapters. That's the adapters are the things you use that are called pacifying behaviors, coined by Joe Navarro. That's anything you use or do to get rid of that built-up stress or tension. You rub on your hand, you rub on your arms, you rub on your legs, you'll push on your face, near your chin. We're seeing quite a bit of those because she's under stress at this point from the situation. We see her head down a little bit, her chin guarding her neck. Of course, again, it's a stressful situation because they've been pulled over and been separated, and she's by herself. Her legs are close together. Again, another sign of the tight body language that indicates she's stressed and might be afraid of what's happening in that situation, what might happen next. Her illustrators are small and they're tight. So instead of doing, here's what's going on, her illustrators are very small and close to her body. Again, that indicates, it denotes that she's under stress at that point. The hair grooming, I think, as Jay said earlier, that's one thing we do when we feel comfortable with or trust the person we're talking to. But at the same time, it can be a way to get rid of heat, and it's pretty hot out there right now. So it could be a combination of both in that situation. She rubs her arm there toward the end. Again, that's another adapter, and she does the adapting leg rub. So those are all the big things indicating that she's under stress at this point. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I want to point out is, did he hit you? And then if it's okay if you say you hit him. So this, to my mind, is a technique to minimize the severity of this. So she might elicit more information to this particular police officer. I think he's minimizing this so he might get more information out of her. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's where it's going. But what we see after that is, to Chase's point, lip retraction and lip compression. It's difficult to see because the sun is in the camera. You're going to have to explode up the picture a little bit, get right in there. But there is something held back there before she answers, did he hit you? There's something she's not going to tell us there, I believe. She demonstrates very clearly, clearly illustrates and demonstrates the grabbing of the face. And after that, she covers her elbow. I'm just stopping my phone ringing. After that, she covers her elbow joint. That would suggest to me that she's probably inaccurate about what she's saying happened there. I would suggest, given what we're going to see in Laundrie later on, he's also inaccurate about what he says the physical was. I'm going to suggest it's more than both of them demonstrate it is. But both of them, I say, are being deceitful about their demonstration of what happened. I think it had escalated past what they're both demonstrating, okay? Because after that demonstration as well, she goes for her knee joint as well. So not only the adapters there are in very specific joint places where you'll go when you're under stress and pressure and you're nervous about what's happening. The cop, one of the cops there, confirms hyperventilation, which I was talking about in the first video. There is an extreme emotion going on, which is including the recovery of hyperventilation. We've got extreme stress has been going on, if not panic. Again, you can put that down to whatever you want to conjecture that might be about. I'm just trying to signal out to you, this is what, from my point of view, we're seeing. Extreme stress, extreme emotions, extreme panic to the level of not only I'm seeing it, but the cops seeing it. Hyperventilation is going on. You might see stuff there of potentially the effect of reactive abuse. You can get that. It's a possibility. It's not a fact. It's a possibility that that's going on. Okay. Now, what else? Yes, abdomen covering, but also a concave posture. That is quite an adolescent move. Again, you'll see that in lots of scientific data, especially around the work of Dr. Amy Cuddy, who you may well recognize in the body language world. Not only has she done the big posturing stuff, the power poses, but also the poses that we take when we feel weak. In adolescence, we get a lot of concave posturing. We're seeing that in the car. The car is designed, the vehicle is designed that you don't have to sit like that. She unconsciously is sitting in that concave posture there. As I said before, it's quite prevalent in adolescence. I think we're seeing regression here as well. We hear it in the voice. It's the same voice that we hear in her blog videos when there's a big rainstorm, thunderstorm happening, that same tonality. And also there's a primal cadence at the end. So what I mean by primal cadence is the intervals between the tones of her voice when she says water are the same intervals that you see that you hear in a child's voice when they're asking a mother or a father or some primary caregiver for a resource. They're asking for that attention. I'd say she's regressing back there. Now, all of this to point to what we're seeing around her at the moment, which is emotional empathy. You may well have been feeling this around this whole case, an idea of emotional empathy, that you relate to her, you sympathize with her, you feel what she feels. She kind of has something of what you believe is your story. She's telling your story. That happens when we see big emotions, because understand, why do we have big emotions? So people around us will do something fast for us. They're designed to fix the situation really fast. So what do we get from this officer? The officer has very quick emotional empathy, and he starts telling his story. He starts going, well, here's how it's like my situation. That's a classic example of emotional empathy. We're going to see it with Laundrie as well. He triggers emotional empathy in the people around him, so they start telling their story. It's not a great thing to do if you want to help people, by the way, is start saying, hey, well, here's how it was for me. What you need is cognitive empathy. That is, there are many scientific papers that say if you're a therapist, if you really want to help people, you want to hit cognitive empathy, not emotional empathy. Because if you're emotionally empathetic, you don't have the capacity to see the whole story and understand how you could best help. In this situation, I believe that both she and Laundrie are going to be triggering emotional empathy, whether they know it a lot or not, in the people around them. And that's not helping her situation right now. Nothing to do with her, not her fault. That's what big emotions are designed to do. Get people active really, really quickly. Some people will get so active, they'll shut you down when you have a big emotion. Some people will get so active, they will feel for you and join in your story, and they'll outrank you on their story. They'll have had a bigger situation like that than you've ever had, and then you don't get helped. And sometimes it fits just right, and you'll get the exact help you need right there and then, you know, if they can work out what that help is, if you're able to ask for it, which you may be not, or they're able to understand what might it be. Anyway, that's what I got for you on that.
So,
Greg,
let me throw in something, Mark, because you said if they're able to ask. Anybody is going to immediately jump to if there's domestic violence. And guys, I'm not the domestic violence expert. I'm the shock of capture and that kind of guy expert. If there is, why wouldn't she raise her hand and go help? Well, what we know is long-term captivity and a lot of bad abusive relationships or captivity reduces your ability to act because it takes away all of your inputs. I said this in the last video. When they're in this space, the only input they're getting is from each other. And if I'm being told my blog doesn't matter, or I'm being told I'm stupid, all that stuff starts to impact how people behave, and it brings down their normal personality. Whoever is doing it, if she's doing it to him, he's doing it to her. In this case, we know that he was saying your little blog, and he was saying she can't do it, and she was losing confidence. Then you lose confidence to act, you lose confidence in decision ability. We know that the shock of capture will take people to a point they won't try to escape anymore, that kind of thing. So what I want you to do is, I'm not going to beat you to death with that. There's a whole lot of details in that. I wrote a part in a book called Are You in Love or Captivity? I can post that somewhere. It is about what happens to your brain as you go further and further into that kind of relationship. Now, if we believe her that this is the first time it happened, it might be the beginning of this horrible thing, or it might be later. That's all I got.
Well, to be honest, I don't think.
Where'd you hit him? You slapped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you slap?
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November.
And then what? And then his reaction was to do what?
It's going to be out of Florida.
Grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, but then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth. If he actually hit you, because where did he hit you? Don't worry. Be honest. Did he slap your face or what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, we don't do it.
Okay. What was up with his driving? This officer said he hit a curb. While you're driving?
Well, he was there.
While he was driving, you were hitting him? Did Jordy tell him all this?
I didn't get that far into
Okay,
it. She was hyperventilating
She's
a little
saying
bit.
that they don't drink, but at the point when you lit them up.
You don't drink or anything.
She started hitting him.
I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I kind of punched her arm like there's a
She's saying it was like he hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad. It was Gabby?
Yeah.
Meditate stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his
OCD.
name? Is it Brian? Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah. But it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
Way of taking my anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, she's my ex-wife, I'm just sharing it, I know it's a little personal, but to help you understand, we would feed off each other's anxiety and spiral, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul, just saying. I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at the situations you can get in, you know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time and then it usually We'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from.
Quick question. You said you were hitting him in the arm. Did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch the steering wheel?
I didn't touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like, you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and like swerve or anything like that?
No. I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find something.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
All right.
Did you already give a statement to this officer? I got this gentleman here. Yeah. This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your neck. Yeah. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer is probably going to be the one handling the whole case. You want to listen to what he has to say, and then you tell him what happened. If you don't mind.
Start at the beginning for me.
Started at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in BLM land for the past week or so, traveling around, and the flies here are pretty intense. So the flies have definitely been getting to her, and then my feet are dirty and everything. So I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around, so it was a little disorganized. So she gets a little.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you need any water?
It's okay.
It's hot out here.
We were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. No, it's all right. I don't like plastic bottles. It's okay. Thank you, though. But we just had a little disagreement there. And the disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, no, it's okay. Thank you so much.
As long as it's cool, that's good.
So it was just more of a disagreement, and I just wanted to say...
What was the disagreement about?
It was, I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like, I got dirty feet, I got sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that. It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So yeah, there's a few little things, little relationships. I don't know if you're in a relationship, but I'm sure you
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things. Right?
Yeah, I can go.
And I get it. We weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way in the block. You know, there's that what is it called, Moonflower?
Right. Yeah.
You know, nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe or come back. Because we're happy with it. But she's, I'm not upset with her. She got worked up and she had a phone in her hand and her keys and everything. And she wanted, not her keys, her rings. She had her rings, her phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have my phone. So she goes off without me. But I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk. And she was trying to get the keys for me. So I was just going, just wait back up. And that's when she hit me. And I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't get overtly physical. I was just trying to keep her away and not get hit. And then I got really loud, and that's probably drew everyone's attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a...
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone? So you pushed her and she hit you?
It wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already, I don't want to, she was already swinging, and I was just, a lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings.
Yeah, you got 3 scratches in your neck. You got 1 on your left side of your nose. You got 1 in your face here, and you got 4 bleeding over there. So it looks like 2 nails coming in. Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
What's that from? I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about
fingernails. Is it bruised or tender or anything like that?
No. Okay. I'm fine, and I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I had to get so public. I was just trying to be loud. So this is, try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching. And like, stop this.
Just hang tight for me.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
I think it's interesting that he's using the words like little squabble, this little disagreement to describe things that are insignificant. And he's also used the exact same word to describe her blog and her website before. And he's even making this little hand gesture to describe how small the interaction was and how meaningless it was. He's staying in this fig leaf groin protection, which is the male equivalent of what women will do when they cover their lower abdomen. And I think this is pretty indicative of some fear going on here. I'll let you guys unpack that. But I want to talk about his story. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. This comes out and he does a confirmation glance between both of the police officers. So his concern is about the social judgment that he's receiving right now, or that he could potentially receive. And the second part of this is he's saying, I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. So her desire for him to be different is what he sees as the cause of the disagreement. So his entire problem was not that they were communicating ineffectively or toxically. I think that's a word. It was all about the desire to calm down was because people were seeing them. People were watching them. And this is his statement. And I think this reflects his social concern and the attention being on him. We will typically use our own worries to keep someone else from doing something. So I'm going to use what I'm scared of to make you scared of something. I'm going to use the same thing. And that's one of the bad communication strategies. And we'll do this not knowing that many times other people's reasons for restricting their behavior might be crazily different than our own. And I think she may have been more fearful of something like abandonment and loss than the social pressure and being embarrassed in front of many people. So everything that he is stressing about is about social judgment and fear of negative social attention, which could lead to like maybe an eventual motive. And this is a wild speculation. Could be from a likely, maybe a threat to expose something about him on the internet, being that all of his concerns are about social judgment and being exposed or having lots of negative social attention on him. I think this is something that we need to be looking for. And it's when he's saying I wasn't overtly physical, he was still physical, just in a way that people wouldn't notice, which is the meaning of that word to begin with. And I think that's interesting. And one other thing that we're going to see in the next clip is something very revealing about his personal behavior and his psychology and how he views the world coming up. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, lovely. So concur on this, on the concern around the spectacle of the argument. You know, just as you were saying there, and how it looks to others. Absolutely picked up on the same thing there. Look, here's what literally jumps to attention for me immediately is how he jumps to attention the moment the other cop comes over. He goes from legs crossed, which is, if you've got your legs crossed, you are not ready for anything. If there's an attack coming, if there is a threat coming, you're going to fall over before you're ever ready for that. And that speaks to just how calm he feels he can be, or how calm he wishes to project himself at that moment. But it doesn't last long, because once he's got a cop on both, so, well, I guess at that point, 3 cops now, he jumps to attention, and that, you know, and especially when we hear about the masks, the marks on the neck as well. Bolt upright, single shrug on that, fig leaf, doesn't know where to look, and starts adapting on his pocket zipper as well. So I think what he's doing is using the zipper to cause his stress and pressure in the delicate area of the thumb there. So he's in control of some kind of stimulus. The stimulus that's now coming at him, especially around the ideas of marks on the neck, has triggered him into a real threat state there. He's gone from the projection of calm, or maybe even somewhat calm. And remember, you know, in video 1, talked about him being calm at the wheel and overly familiar with the cop there, calls him buddy immediately. So whether he's calm or not, there's a sense of, I want you to see that I'm really calm around this. We start to see him after he said, well, I don't want to go too far back. Well, you know, that would be the point where I might go, no, go on. Go as far back as you like. I've got time. We can hear about this. So I would like to know, how far back would you go that it would put you under even more stress to start talking about this? How far back do we need to go to really get where the start of this whole incident really is? We see covering of knuckles, covering of joints. So again, there's a real threat for him around here. Now, what's interesting here, to my point earlier about emotional empathy, is he starts getting information from the cop. The cop actually says, well, I've been married five years. Why is the cop confiding in him? Well, because he's able, again, with the state that he's in, to start getting another human being to confide and get them to join in on the story and see their own story in him. Okay, to get emotional empathy with him. We even get the other cop later on starting to join in a pantomime of like, here's what I think happened. He's literally adopted a character in the story and he's playing out that character. Now, that cop has no idea what was happening, but that you can perform a story at the emotional level that means other human beings will join in order to try and save you, essentially, save you from the pain of the emotions in that story, or save themselves having to watch that story by jumping in with their own. Remember, one of the reasons we'll join in with emotional empathy is we're not used to the other person's pain, but we're used to ours. And we'd rather take over with our own story and see ourselves in there than actually really experience what their individual true pain is. I think we get two cops who want to join in on this. It's all too emotional, all too painful, to the extent that we're going to start to see his language break up. So we get things like a lot of anger on her nails, on her rings. That's not a real sentence. He's now just talking in images. In the next video, we'll see what the cop starts to make out of that his language has started to split up. And that maybe speaks, Chase, to something of what you're talking about as to what his emotional state is there. I think. Oh, and last thing around this. We went physical before. We weren't physical before that point. Okay, so you were physical. Okay, so you're telling us you were physical, and he models the push away, which again is different from what Gabby modeled. There's a discrepancy in what he shows happened and she shows happen. And we now know that both of those examples, one of them is somewhat different from what both of them modeled. So he is really downplaying any potential, the idea of physical. She downplays it somewhat, okay? She does get, a witness did say her face was grabbed. Another witness says there was a slap. Neither of them model that. So both of them, and you'll be able to work out what you feel the reasons are around that. Both of them are trying to minimize and get people to join in with the story around this, and they're being successful around that. I think that's all I have for you on that. Scott, what do you got?
We see something here we haven't seen up to this point. In the very first videos when they pull him out of the car, we do see his hands together a little bit, not much. But as we go along, those go away, and almost completely. And here we see it almost the whole time. His hands begin right down in front of him. But that starts when he starts talking about the problem she has with him. And when they don't get along, something's happening. I'm dirty, I have this happening, I have that happening. He talks about those things. And that's when his body language starts shutting down. His arms get close. His brain's trying to protect his body. He doesn't feel good about what he's saying because he knows he's riding that edge of getting in trouble or not getting in trouble, and he really doesn't know where he's sitting with all this yet. So everything's really tight, and he's smiling a lot because, of course, he's trying to get along with these guys and make it look like he's the best guy in the world. We know differently now. But one of the great things I thought about these police officers was, the officer says, hey, I know have you told him your story yet? Because he's got to tell the story 4 or 5 times because they know, and you're trained to do this. You ask them to tell the story to 3 or 4 different people and see if anything changes in there. Because if it does, and they're getting a baseline on his story. Here's the beginning. Here's the first story he told. What is he adding to it? What is he leaving out by the third, fourth time he tells the story? It's very important. So that's why they're all paying attention. That's why he says, did you tell him that story? You're probably going to have to. Because when he tells them it, they're all going to be listening. They won't say, this is, you left this out. What happened there? Not at all. They'll get over here and talk about it and see what's different and then start poking around on what was left out or what was added at that point. All right. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you some of what you've all talked about together. Number one, Mark leaning back with his legs crossed, his hands are disengaged. That's because he's gotten comfortable with the police officers he's talking to. If you notice, when he says, if you talk to this guy, he's the arresting officer, whatever he says, investigating officer, his body language tightens up. He's not comfortable with this guy. He's comfortable with the other guy. By the way, this is the guy who pulled him over. So he does a threat ID and his hands cross. Then they ask him about a water bottle, and he shows, look, I really appreciate it, but he puts his hand to his chest. We'll see that again. But he touches his chest in appreciation. Watch him as he starts to tell his story, and he goes to internal conversation. He drops down to his left about what should I say, how should I say it, because all of us are going to do that when we're in front of the police officer. And it's going to be more pronounced the more complex and the more dangerous what I have to say is. So pay attention to that. That's what should I say. Chase, the only reason I would say little may not mean anything in this case is because he says little matter, little disorganized, little thing. I think if you were to find his father or whoever he's closest to and they talk all the time, little is part of their conversation because he uses it so many ways. In the beginning, you look at it and think, okay, I agree. It's belittling when you say her little blog, but I think he just uses this word, not standing up for him in the way he treated her with that. Then we get to, he says it went physical. Look, guys, I can speak for myself. Those words don't exist in my relationship. Those are guilty words. When you talk about things going physical, I would venture to say the four of us don't have those in our relationships. That means that is a thing that you have to put words to. So that means something is going on in this relationship. I said last time, you can see a lot of things here. You could tell he's controlling when he talked about taking the keys to get in the vehicle, controlling in a person who has a fear of losing control of things or a bad combination. Then he talks about getting worked up, and he said something that's really interesting. Either he said, I didn't have my phone, or I don't have a phone. Not sure which. We know he has a phone, so if he said that, he's lying. Then he says, I didn't get overtly physical. In this case, Mark, I think he just doesn't use the word correctly. I think he's talking about, really aggressive physically. And if that's the case, that really means that this has happened before. Then the cop starts covering what he's told him. He drops his hand to his sides and he starts to adapt as he's retelling the story. And he turns to an oblique to that cop when he starts talking about it not being a big deal. I pushed her off. Mark, I think you're right. I think what's going on is there's more to it than we think, than either one of them is willing to tell us. And then he crosses his torso with a barrier. He does a little chained elephant slightly, and he socializes, I hope she doesn't have too many complaints against me. Guys, all of this is coming together as a relationship where they were comfortable with some level of physical violence, whether she's hitting him, he's hitting her. Don't know where it went, but there's something that is dangerous when you start hitting each other using words like idiot, stupid, crazy, those kinds of things. Those are escalation paths. And that kind of stuff never ends well. It's what I said last time. The reason I knew this doesn't end well, I don't know how it ended. It's not important for me to tell you how it ended. Just know that these are not healthy relationships. And I'll leave it at that.
Did you already give a statement for this officer?
I got this gentleman here.
Yeah. This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your neck. Yeah. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer is probably going to be the one handling the whole case. You want to listen to what he has to say, and then you tell him what happened. If you don't mind.
Start at the beginning for me.
Started at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in BLM land for the past week or so, traveling around, and the flies here are pretty intense. So the flies have definitely been getting to her, and then my feet are dirty and everything. So I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around, so it was a little disorganized. So she gets a little.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you need any water?
It's okay.
It's hot out here.
We were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. No, it's all right. I don't like plastic bottles. Thank you, though. But we just had a little disagreement there. And disagreement. It was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, "No, it's okay. Thank you so much."
Okay, as long as it's cool, that's good.
So it was just more disagreement, and I just wanted to say...
What was the disagreement about?
It was, I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like, I got dirty feet, I got sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that. It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So yeah, there's a few little things, little relationships. I don't know if you're in a relationship, but I'm sure you
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things, right?
Yeah, I can go.
And
I get it.
We really, we weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way on the block. You know, there's that what is it called, Moonflower?
Right, yeah.
You know, nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe or come back. Because we're happy with it. But she's, I'm not upset with her. She got worked up and she had a phone in her hand and the keys and everything. And she wanted, I know the keys, her rings. She had rings, the phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. But I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk. And she was trying to get the keys for me. So I was just going, just wait back up. And that's when she hit me. And I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't get overtly physical. I was just trying to keep her away and not get hit. And then I got really loud. And like that's probably fear of losing attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a phone.
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone. So you pushed her and she hit you?
She was. It wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already. I don't want to. She was already swinging and I was. A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings.
Yeah. You got 3 scratches in your neck. You got 1 on your left side of your nose. You got 1 in your face here, and you got 4 bleeding over there. So it looks like 2 hands coming in. Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
It's a little bit of nails. I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about
fingernails. Is it bruised or tender or anything like that?
No. Okay. I'm fine, and I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I had to get so public. I was just trying to be loud to this is, try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching. And like, stop this.
Just hang tight for me.
Excellent. Let's move on.
I got a quick question for you, Ryan. Sure. Do you take any medications or anything like that? You don't take any medications or anything like that? Are you normally this kind of like hyper?
Do I seem that? My heart rate up, whenever the lights flash on, it gets your heart rate up. Do I seem hyper?
Trust me, it does me too, and I'm the one that it gets me going a little bit.
You probably
too,
can say, hey buddy, whenever somebody walks up.
So, okay. Yeah, do you know if she takes any?
She's crazy. No, I don't think so. No, none that I know of.
All right.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so as the officer approaches, just a question. It's quite Columbo, isn't it? And I think we immediately see the chin rise, bit of a chin jut there, and a sway from side to side. We're now seeing a little bit of aggression build up and having to be kind of controlled, a little bit of bravado now. I think he's now feeling the pressure even more. And one of the strategies going on is unconscious is maybe I front this one up a bit more. Maybe I get a bit angry. Maybe a bit more of the fight rather than the flight starts to kick in now. Remember, the first in fight and flight, as a good general rule, okay, it always starts with flight because it's way more economical. You get yourself out of the situation, you'll always get less damage, okay? Fight is the second chance. After that is the play dead response, essentially. And there's a feint, as the play dead response as the other F there. But chin jut, feeling of bravado under the stress, swing from side to side. That's often an indicator of aggression or that somebody's feeling like cutting and running. What's interesting for me is the cop here puts a finger on something that I've been feeling throughout, is this choppy language. Yes, one of the things I'd be asking is, you want any kind of medication right now? Because I understand that there's some ideas out there, good ideas around that he may have a social disorder. The one that's specifically being pushed towards is a possibility, along with others, along with many other potential disorders, some of which would be medicated for, and some of which we're seeing those patterns of behavior coming out here. Very dangerous if you've got some of them all together and the person isn't on their medication. We know from other witness statements that there are such things as the possibility of auditory hallucinations going on. Again, that speaks to something quite profound going on that often really needs medicating. Anyway, it's a good question. Are you on medication? We don't get to hear that. That's been taken out. But somebody at his age, on the whole, the answer to that is kind of a yes or a no. Like if you're that young, you're either on medication or you're not on medication. You know, at my age now, there's a whole bunch of medication. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. The doctors are going to, you should take this. You should have this. Your heart will really enjoy this. Take that as well. So, you know, if you ask me, hey, Mark, you on medication? It's like, oh, okay, well, how long have you got? Okay. So, but for a young guy like that, for me, it would feel like a yes or no answer. So I simply go, why all that activity for him around that? We're not hearing some of it, but there's a lot of non-verbals coming in there that suggest, he doesn't give a clear answer on that. He deflects on that, and there's some shrugs in there. There's some breaking of eye contact. There could be some self-medication going on around that. And again, it may well speak to other psychological disorders which are not the initial popular one that people are going for. Okay, not saying you're wrong, not saying you're right, not saying I'm wrong, not saying I'm right. It's just what we want to do is explore the possibilities when we're looking to be, you know, cognitive about this. Yes, he says, well, the reason for his anxiety or why he's hyper is, you know, it gets your heart rate up when you see those lights flash. Instantly thinks to me, well, how many have you seen that before? How many times have you seen that then? Are you around some of that? Do you see that constantly? Maybe the case. Last little thing on this, he creates doubt at the end. She's crazy. You know, she on medication? She's crazy. I don't think so. Not that I know of. You know, use there in a very short amount of time with people that he's built rapport with to the extent that they will join in the play with him and become characters to help him out. He's now casting doubt on the other party here. Quite skillful. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, brilliant, man. Totally agree. I think this hyper cooperative behavior that we're seeing in all of this is indicative of a behavioral pattern. So if we look at behavior on a pendulum, we have collapse on one side, we have composure kind of here in the middle, and way over here we have posturing, someone who's going to over posture and be someone who they're not. People who spend a lot of time in collapse, especially when they're also viewing the world through a lens of this external locus of control. He's even referencing his heart rate and the police lights using the word you instead of himself, to where it doesn't even belong to him. He's not even in control of anything. These kind of people may reach a point that makes them extremely frustrated. So if you live in this kind of collapsed side of everything, which is also indicated in the social media posts where he's featured many times, for many of us, if we're sitting over here in collapse, the solution to collapse looks like I need to do the opposite of what I'm doing now, except that's posturing. So people who spend a while kind of living as a doormat or defaulting to this kind of hyper cooperative behavior, they look across and see the opposite. And this is the wild reaction that we can get out of people who are hyper compliant on a very regular basis and are tired of it. And they get to a point where they say the words, somebody snapped. People use that word. And it's not that they snapped. They felt the desire to no longer be in collapse. And they thought, that is the only way out, is to go to the opposite end of what I'm doing now. And I think that there's another term. We are the only animals that we know of that have real language and evolved language and social skill. So animals have fight, flight, freeze, or faint. And I think we are adding one in there called friend. Every single one of us knows at least one person that when all the crap goes down, their first and number one default instinct is I'm going to make friends with this person. I'm going to be innocent. I'm going to connect as much as I can with this other person and try to resolve this by friending instead of all the others. And this is potentially what we're seeing here. But keep in mind that we're looking for clusters of behavior, and we're looking for a pattern of behavior. But I'd like you to see that this social trigger for him is very powerful. And this regression trigger is really telling. Because I think a lot of people, most people, when we're under severe stress or when we enter this, as we're abbreviating as fight or flight, when we enter that state, we tend to default from how we got acceptance, how we got protected ourselves as children, or how we got affection from the authority figures in our lives as we're growing up. And we default to that. So some people you'll see become very helpful. Some become very friendly. Some become reserved. Some cry because that's how they got attention or affection. And we learn these patterns and carry them unconsciously into adulthood. So we're seeing a lot about his behavior here and the potential for something that's the opposite of collapsing, which is a severe version of posturing. I think that's the longest I've ever gone on a video, and I apologize. I hope it was helpful.
Good stuff.
Don't apologize, man.
Good stuff.
You got that, dude. You slammed it. That was good. That was good. Yeah, man. Get up in it.
All right.
And I'll go short again. We see some childlike behavior here because his arms have gone from those to in front of him, guarding the groin and doing all his adapters. His arms are straight down by his side, and it looks so weird, him standing there like that. There's no loping still in his voice, like Mark pointed out earlier. He's just sort of, everything's just kind of pouring out as quick as he can get it out.
How does it go?
Fast talker. Being a fast talker, I understand that, so it's easy for me to understand where he's coming from, because it's when you're stressed, man, it just starts blowing out of there really, really quick. Now on the drug thing though, they mute that part out. I think he used to take something for used to take drugs. And because he does say no after that, no, I don't take anything. So right after that, listen for that, because he says, no, I don't, I'm not taking anything. So I'm sure what he did was a quick list of what he was taking. So Mark, I think he scored there. And so they had to beat that out. If I had to guess anything at all, I would say it was something like Adderall or something for some personality, maybe anti-anxiety medication, something like that. Because I looked and watched a couple of times. It looks like he says anxiety one time. So that's what I've got there. And I think he feels the threat is lower at this point. That's why his hands are at his sides. He's trying to be friends with these guys, is going through all his extra F there, and he's trying to connect with them, and so he can get along with them and have common ground with them. I think that's why they're trying to, as they engage him and ask him, when he says, I don't know if you're in a relationship or not, and the police officer says, well, I've been married for 5 years. That's just one way of trying to get that person to keep talking. Oh yeah, man, I understand. I told you, Greg and I did this on the interview we did last week with someone. But you'll see, we were saying things we had nothing. We didn't do these things, but we would agree and say, oh, we have done that before. I understand that. The guy's probably married, but he's trying to connect with him, and he's letting him connect with him. So that's what that's about, in my opinion. That's what I think. All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so yes, when you get pulled over by a police officer, your emotions ramp, everything goes, your adrenal cortex kicks in, all this stuff cranks your head up, and it turns off your thinking brain. That usually doesn't last for 20 minutes. Usually it settles, and he has been here long enough to be familiar with these people. The fact his body language is jittery and he's cranked up, he still has adrenaline. This guy is cued on it, wondering if he's doing some kind of drug, taking some kind of drug. Now, I'm going to say these police officers are better at figuring out if somebody's on drugs than I am based on pupil dilation and all those other things, and they'd be looking for it. So I'm assuming he's thinking no. The second part then is why? 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 Why are you so jacked up? What are you so concerned about? What's causing you to still have that level of fight or flight? He clearly doesn't see the guy as a threat. So is there something in the van that he's trying to hide? Is there something else he's trying to hide? Does he know about a second something or something else? Don't know. But there's certainly a reason why you look for that level of anxiety, that level of jacked up after this is 16 minutes into the video, I think. He also does a half, the only time I see him do anything, he does a half fig leaf. Watch his hand, reach for his groin, and then pause, and then go back out. So he's conscious of how that is. And then I'm just going to leave it at this. He socializes. She's crazy. That's a fire across the bow with what you think and see how it's perceived, and you go from there. Guys, I'll go back to saying, if you are only getting your inputs from another person and you're getting the input that you've got the power in the relationship, they've got none, or they're telling you you're stupid, or they're telling you that you're lazy, all that stuff starts to wear on people and they start to escalate. And if you have a natural propensity to do the wrong thing, escalation is powerful. I'm not going to tell you that I know what happened, but I could see in that the first time we looked at this, I said, this doesn't end well, because you can see all that language, all that stuff in there, that this was not going to go well. And in a small environment where you're rattling over the same things over and over and over and over and over, and you're just feeding each other's problem, it's a horrible thing. Not an excuse, not a reason that somebody should injure anyone else. As I said yesterday on another video, if you're hitting someone or someone's hitting you, stop, get out, get away from that now. There's no excuse for that. That's what I got.
I got a quick question for you, Ryan. Sure. Do you take any medications or anything like that? You don't take any medications or anything like that? Are you normally this kind of like hyper?
Do I seem that? My heart rate doesn't, whenever the lights flash on, it gets your heart rate up. If I see my...
Trust me, it does me too, and I'm the one that it gets me going a little bit.
You probably
too,
can say, hey buddy, whenever somebody walks up.
So, okay. Yeah, do you know if she takes any?
She's crazy. No, I don't think so. No, none that I know of.
All right.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. Just hit that little red thing down there that says subscribe, and you'll be a member. You'll be a panelist, just like us. Just hit that little bell, and it'll let you know when we have something new come out. We good?
You know, I'm just going to say one thing, which is if you've seen anything here that feels a bit familiar to you and you recognize for yourself or others, I'm going to stick a number down below that you can call and somebody will talk to you about that. So if you see anything familiar in your life or somebody else's, call the number, have a chat.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, be sure you do that. Okay, we good?
Good.
See you next time.
All right. See you next time.
Bị xe nó mang cái sự nó không xịn xịn